curious to learn how to build an impressive resume, right?
Right.
So I'm just going to, dive right into the questions that we've gotten from everybody, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be, pretty important for everybody, especially the ones who are going to start building their resumes right now. So,
Yeah.
my first question to you is, what is the difference between a resume and a CV? Are they two different things, or are they just synonyms?
Yeah. I think I really like that question, and it is so important to ask that question right at the beginning of the conversation. Because when we're talking about resume building, and if people assume that resume and CV are the same things, then the entire purpose of the conversation would die, right? And I feel, even as a student, I'll be very honest, no one ever told us in college that, resume and CV are two different things, even though you have soft skill trainers coming in and helping you. It never happened. And that was when I remember that when I started taking these mentoring sessions, I realized that actually they're not two same things. And you cannot use them as synonyms for sure. And people, or even HR recruiters, I've seen even hiring managers use them interchangeably. That they'll say, please submit your CV or submit your resume. It's wrong. So there are a couple of differences. I'll just point out a few of them, right? The first thing is that whenever you apply to any company for any job, right, whether it's an MNC or it is a startup or wherever you're applying for jobs, you submit a resume. So when an HR tells you that please submit your CV, it's wrong. It's technically wrong because a CV is different, and for jobs you use a resume. Now, when you talk about a curriculum vitae or a curriculum vitae or a CV, whatever you want to call it, there are two pronunciations to it. That is used when you're applying for, let's say, a master's degree or an MBA, anything in the educational area, to do some research. You want to do your PhD, let's say, from outside, or assuming you're a teacher who wants to apply to a university, then you won't submit your resume, you will submit a CV, right? Now, so these are like the major differences in terms of the documents. But another very important difference is what happens is the length of the documents, right? Now, most of the people feel that a lot of people say that resumes should not be longer than 2 pages, etc. See, it's not about the length, it's actually the purpose of the document. Because the purpose of a document is to apply to a job, hence the length should not be very elaborate because the recruiter is anyways going to call you for a job interview. What will you tell them then if you have all the information on the piece of paper? It's logic, simple logic. Your resume should only highlight certain things and it should only intrigue the recruiter to know more about you when you are called for an interview. If you're able to grab the attention, just highlight certain points in a one pager, good to go. So, resume should be ideally one page if you're a fresher or you're someone with less than 10 years of experience. You shouldn't go beyond like a one and a half page. Max, I would say, max limit 2 pages. Now, when you talk about a CV, because you're applying to university, they would like to understand more about your educational background, your extracurricular activities, research work that you've done, because this is what universities take into account, your volunteering activities. So you elaborate a little more on things. That's why the length goes up to between 4 to 6 pages, at least. Now, the moment it crosses 2 pages, it does not remain a resume anymore, right? And that is why I say when you apply to jobs, if they ask you for a CV, they're actually doing something very wrong because they themselves will not ever sit and actually scan through a 4 page resume because it's a CV, right? So these are a few major differences. And I also would like to point out that when you talk about CVs, right? CVs are also typically used to also show some references. Like resume, you never add references or people who could refer you, their name and phone numbers, etc. But universities need them, and sometimes they specifically mention in CVs we would like to have references mentioned. That is another major difference between the two.
All right, okay. Oh, I learned something new right now. Um, and
Yeah,
I'm going to ask the people who are watching us right now that feel free to ask questions in between. Okay, don't think, okay,
yeah,
Abhi, we're talking about something else, so I should not ask. We'll get to your question as well. All right, so
sure.
moving on, ma'am. What are the things that one should keep in mind while building a resume?
Hmm. See, I think the first thing that you need to keep in mind today, because of the presence of different types of resumes, is which kind of a domain are you applying to? Why I'm saying this is because if you're in a very creative field, like a web developer or a designer, a video editor, a fashion designer, then I wouldn't expect to get like a typical plain and a neat resume from you. I would want to see your creativity. I would like to see a digital portfolio, your personal website, maybe just like, I had done an Instagram live with Ankita Chawla, who got hired to her Instagram handle to, Deloitte as a marketing consultant. How did she do that? Was she grabbed the attention of the employers through her Instagram grid 2 years ago, right? There was no resume that got her hired. What I'm trying to tell you is which domain you're trying to apply to will determine the kind of resume or portfolio of sorts what I need, right? Because I'll tell you what, we are into a visual era today, right? If you're able to see the things and your work, it increases your credibility. That's why resumes, that is video resumes are the next thing. I'm not saying that your resumes are going to become redundant, but your video resumes are going to complement or supplement your resumes in order to stand out from the crowd, right? When you talk about a normal MNC job, you're applying on their portals, etc., then obviously, yes, like a typical resume, which should be ATS compliant, that you can use, right? A simple template, not very fancy. It doesn't have to be very aesthetically pleasing like a graphic designer portfolio should look like. But you should have the important keywords from the job description. This is what I'm talking about when an MNC scenario. Your job description given by the company for a particular job role has the key to everything that is needed in your resume. If you read it thoroughly, you will find the answers to everything, right? Right from the keywords, what they're looking for in you and what is the eligibility criteria, etc. That is exactly what you need to reflect onto your resume, right? And I would say another mistake that I see typically a lot of people make is not knowing which sections to add and which sections to remove and how to frame the resume. So what happens is sometimes unnecessary information is passed which is not needed, and sometimes very important information which could have helped them stand out from the crowd is missed out. So be very, very careful about the sections that you put in and about the information that you elaborate on. Because even just putting your work experiences or jobs or internships will not help that, I was interning with Microsoft. No. What were you doing when you were interning with Microsoft? What was your role like? How did you impact the company? Right? What kind of a team were you working in? What technologies were you using? I would like to know how you impacted the company rather than vice versa. Because most of the students always, and it's a two-way process. Students always feel that, if I've gotten recruited into such a big company or MNC, it's going to add value to my profile. But they have hired you. You are also going to add value to the company's profile at the end of the day. And that's the reason you're hired by them. So it's a two-way street. Job interviews or jobs in general are a two-way street. So make sure you highlight your skills very well. Remove the redundant information like, adding your gender, your complete address. No one wants to know that. Your marital status. A lot of people add a declaration in their resume. Not at all needed, right? So take care of these things. These are a few tips that you can follow when you're building your resume.
All right. So we even got a question, ma'am. Is there any content difference between what you put in a CV and what you put in a resume?
So if I had to be very honest, technically not a lot. But what happens is everything that you're restricted to not put in a resume, you get the room to elaborate in a CV, to be very honest. Second thing, you can have a separate section for your volunteering activities, which I don't think is needed in a resume because that can just be added under your achievements in 1 or 2 lines. But here, it would be great if you could actually elaborate again on the volunteering activities as well, because as I said, it's used for research purposes and by universities. And they would like to know what volunteering work you did, how were you involved, etc. And then elaborate a little more on any research papers you have published, etc. Because all of that adds value to your university applications in CVs, right? And as I said, when you're expressing your, previous job experiences also in a resume, even though you put like 3, 4, 5 bullet points, you'll still have to be very mindful because you will have that restriction that I need to fit it into that 1.5 page. In a CV, you don't have that restriction. You can go all out, elaborately explain your role, etc. And you can add references also, like I told you. So it's just that I would say the purpose is obviously different. Your focus in a CV should be on your extracurricular activities. Academic grades are also very important. The way your grades are looked at in a CV and the way they are looked at in a resume are not the same. Because universities are very, focused on your marks and your grades as well, because they are admitting you into another course that you have to do for another 2 or 3 years or a year. But when you apply for a job, sometimes just having like a 60% and above is just kept as a cutoff, and that's okay. So I would say CV focuses on the academic grades. The focus is in extracurricular activities and your achievements more. And here in a resume, you should focus more on your skills that you develop and your work experiences because it's job specific. So that's the only difference. The perspective with which you write things will change.
All right. Okay. So we even have a
Yeah.
question from Nupur, which I also personally want to know the answer to. Is image
Okay.
necessary for resume or CV? Do you have to put your image there?
Okay, so what happens is when you talk about a resume, right? In a resume, because nowadays all of the companies are using this applicant tracking system, which we'll talk about later in the conversation. The images that you use or the charts that you use, any pictorial, element that you use in your resume gets discarded by the ATS because it's only text friendly. And it's also been observed by a lot of surveys that keeping your image in your resume creates a gender bias at times. Some companies become biased because of the picture. Okay, that if there have been cases where they have seen the picture and only females have been given preference or vice versa. So I would say in any case to firstly number one to avoid being rejected by the ATS. Number two to avoid any gender bias. You should not include a picture unless and until some colleges have like a format. Compulsorily, you have to maintain a format and they ask you to put an image. Then in that case, you can't really help it. And if they're doing that, in that case, anyways, on campus, ATS does not matter that much because your companies, your universities have tie-ups with these companies. They come in the procedure is slightly different. Off campus, when you apply, please try and avoid and not putting any images or pictures or charts or anything of infographic of sorts because it's not compliant with the ATS. So you shouldn't be putting it.
All right. So I think we've talked a lot about ATS right now. So I'm pretty sure many people have the question, what is ATS? So ma'am, could you
Yeah,
elaborate a bit more on that?
sure. So an ATS basically stands for an applicant tracking system. It is actually a software, or you can say a robot or a bot of sorts, which works on certain parameters. Okay, it works on certain algorithms and parameters fed into it, just like your AI and ML-driven machines and robots work. Right now, what it does is based on the various parameters, it makes a decision whether I want to pass or I want to reject the resume in 6 seconds. It takes only 6 seconds, and majority of your companies, which is about 98 to 99% of your Fortune 500 companies, have an ATS in place on their websites or any of the portals where you apply for their jobs. Okay, so what you need to keep in mind is it is not uh, a recruiter who is seeing your resume. It is the ATS who decides your fate of getting into a company. Gone are the days when a recruiter was sitting with a pile or a bunch of, resumes, and then they were going and selecting the candidates. The ATS will first scan your resume. If you pass it through, you pass the test. Then the recruiter sees your resume and judges if it's good to go or not. So what I'd like to emphasize on here is the ATS is used by almost all the companies. Some startups also have their own inbuilt ATS systems. What you need to keep in mind is, as I said, avoid pictures, avoid infographic elements, anything which is non-text friendly. Number two, please use optimized keywords from the job description in your resume so that when the parameters are being judged to give you a weightage or a score out of 100 in your ATS, you get a good score because the keywords have a highest weightage in terms of other parameters. Okay. Now, again, when you talk about keywords, don't try to stuff the keywords from the resume that, okay, if it's written, they want good communication skills, you'll just fill in communication everywhere. Or if they say they want someone who knows Excel, you have to use it very strategically. Be a little smart and diplomatic because the ATS will also not just judge it on the number of times it has appeared in a particular sentence, but how well spaced out it is and how meaningful is it sounding in a particular section, right? So it's going to judge it because it's AI driven. They understand things, okay? So don't stuff your resume with keywords, but yes, use the important words. And I would say use neat templates, as I said, fewer elements, not very loud colors, neutral colors. If you want to use like an attractive template, also keep it very neutral, right? And I would also say always proofread your resume and align it very well. A lot of people don't give a lot of attention to the alignment, justification, and formatting, but that also counts because an ATS scans or parses through your resume, so it needs your resume to be aligned very well. Okay, So if the alignments are here and there, it finds it difficult to parse through it, right? So please take care of the justification of the font, the indentation, everything, so that it's very good to look at and also very easy for the ATS to skim through.
All right, ma'am, we also got another question. It is, what about your academic background when you're only 6 months experience? Is it something that you should put on your resume, or is it something that you should, put aside?
Your academic background is a section which can never be derailed or which can never be excluded, neither from a CV, neither from a resume. Because without your academic qualifications, probably nowadays the things are different. You wouldn't have probably gotten an opportunity to apply for that role, right? Your academic qualifications and what you have done, whether it's your university, BTech undergraduate degree, or it's your master's that you have done, has to always be included. Because I've got clients with even 10 or 15 years of experience who get their resume made from me, I get asked this question that we have 15 years of experience. Do we need to include our MBA or BTech graduation, degrees and when we did them? I always tell them you have to do it because that is your journey. That is what has got you here today. The recruiter needs to understand the background you're coming from, right? If there is no clue, just imagine a resume without any academic qualifications and straight away I'm telling you I did this internship at so-and-so firm and then I did a job and this is who I am. I don't think you'll be able to connect the dots well, right? But when I tell you, I did my electronics and communication engineering last year. Now, then I switched over to management consulting because I got interested towards consulting. And now, since the past almost 9 months, I'm doing a job with the Big Four. Then you will be able to connect the dots and understand, okay, she came from an engineering background, but she got interested towards management. So she switched roles and now she's a management consultant. You get the point? So your academic qualifications can never be discarded and they should always be a part of your resume and CV both. Very important.
All right, ma'am. So we're talking about parts of the resume. On this, there's a question. What are the components that we should add in a resume, and is there like a particular sequence they should be in?
That's a good question. So I'll tell you one thing very typically. There is no predefined sequence because you go to multiple websites, multiple sources, you will find different sequences. But this is what I follow and I believe in works. Is number one, understand one thing, that no matter whether you come with experience or you are a student, okay? Your experience in terms of as a student, if you've done an internship, if you've done an industrial training, you did some freelancing work, that is experience for you. But if you talk about clubs, chapters and societies, which you volunteered for in your college, that is not experience. That is your achievements or extracurriculars. But what students feel is the internships and the industrial trainings are also not experience. They feel they articulate experience only to jobs or job experience, which is wrong. When a recruiter is coming to recruit you, even in your campus, they don't want to know about your education. They are anyways coming to your college. I mean, they can go through what I'm trying to tell you. The first thing they want to see is not your education. The first thing they'd like to see is how did you apply your education practically, which is experience. Did you learn some skills? Did you do some certifications? Did you do some internships? What exposure do you have? So your first section should be your work experience section, preferably on the top left, because the human eye by default will always look, if you look at a piece of paper, you look at the left top corner first, always by default, whenever you look at a paper. And hence, if this is a paper, here is where my first section, that is the work experience section, should come, right? There, you can put your work experience, whatever. If it's students, you put your internships, industrial trainings. If you have had previous job roles, please mention that. And don't just leave it there. Elaborate a little more on your role, please. Ideally, after that, you should talk a bit about your skills. The next section should be skills, because next the recruiter would like to know what skills do you possess. Whether it's technical skills, whether it's management skills, they would like to know what kind of proficiency do you bring to the table. And does it align with the job description, right? Because they would have mentioned that we want someone who's good with Java, we want someone who knows MATLAB or whatever. Just some examples, right? Now, if you have those skills, you have to specify that so that it aligns with the job description. And I think the next thing should be your projects or your research work, whatever applies to you. Because again, the next very important thing which the recruiter would like to know, he has known your work experience, he's understood your skills. Now he would also like to know, did you build any projects? Have you done any research work, whether it was in a team or individually? Because again, if you have not done internships, the only way to show a recruiter that you've applied your knowledge is projects. Because you work on it real time, right? You put your theoretical knowledge to use. whether it's hardware based or software based, you're going to learn something very, very practically and application oriented in a project. So that is also a very important section. Elaborate on your projects, the title, dates, etc., everything. And when you then you can have your education section or achievements also. It's up to you. Education and then your basic personal information like yeah,
Okay.
I think
All right,
yeah.
ma'am.
So last section could be achievements.
Okay, so this was about the components and structure of building your resume and even your CV, I guess, in a way. So we
Yeah,
talked about ATS before this. So how do we make an ATS compliant resume?
yeah. So one thing that I'd like to just mention before beginning to answer your question is, because ATS has been in picture for a long time, about 7 to 8 years or 9 years. But the fact is that because this was a system which was brought into picture to reduce the time of filtering candidates for HRs. Simple purpose. It was so that their time is saved and you get filtered or quality candidates, right? However, not every ATS functions the same way, but there are some typical parameters which have been found out because of research and articles, and HRs themselves have come out and been able to share this knowledge. So I'll just share a few points which can help you irrespective of the ATS the company is using. Okay. Number one, you should make sure, as I said, that this thing I didn't mention. When you talk about a resume, right, most of the templates have your personal information like your phone number, email address. They say mention it at the top, at the header, or at the footer. Right at the top, they mention personal information. Most of the templates follow that pattern, which is a little wrong because when the ATS skims through your resume, what happens is sometimes it's not able to catch or it's not able to scan the information right at the top or right at the bottom of the resume. So I'm not saying you will get rejected, but just to be on the safe side, always have a separate section for for your personal information. Always. That's one thing. The second thing I'd like to mention here is that keep your font style very consistent. Don't use Arial in your work experience section, Calibri in your achievement section, then Times New Roman in your project section. Don't do that. It confuses the ATS. Use a uniform font size throughout your resume. If you're maintaining Times New Roman, maintain Times New Roman. Obviously, your font size can be changed. You can use 14, let's say, for the headings, and you can use 10 to 12 ka range for your content within the resume, right? Change in font size is okay, but font style should be consistent. Again, and if you want to play with colors for the headings, different colors for the headings and different color for the content, don't go with too many loud colors. And generally, the content should be in black only. Maintain a standard black. Headings could be in a different color. Again, not too loud, right? That is one thing. And I think that point which I mentioned already, pictures, infographics, discard them, please. Keep it only text friendly, as much text as possible, and make sure your text is very readable, right? So, for in order to make it very user friendly, don't use huge paragraphs, right? When you're explaining an experience, don't make it like 5 lines on a chunk of data. Use bullet points so that it looks neat to look at and it is easy for the ATS to scan through it and pick out the words, right? If it's just a sentence, it will just skim through it, pick out the keywords, and give you a score very easily. And then the indentation and all is very important because while scanning, everything should be in one line so that it shouldn't be like I have to go here, then go here, then go here, right? Because the skimming or the scanning will get interrupted. And I would say don't follow a column-wise format, like let's say 3 sections here and 3 sections here. Follow a horizontal format, section after section. Because it becomes easier for the ATS to skim through because it skims like this horizontally, not column-wise, right? So this is a very recent development. ATSs are not very friendly with column-divided resumes, so avoid that.
All right, ma'am. And I think I have this question personally. What is
Okay.
considered to be a good ATS score?
Okay. See, again, now you have a lot of tools which you can go and check out, obviously, on the internet. You've got a lot of websites, like you've got Resume Worded, you have got JobScan. I personally really like jobscan.io. It's a very good website. Resume Worded is also good. You can get your ATS score there, and there are many more, right? But I feel, see, again, now every ATS will have a different parameter because a company has a cutoff. Okay, it gives you a weightage. Let's say they want people who have a score above at least 65. and you get even a 64, you're going to get rejected. So number one in the industry. So
That's
yeah,
okay.
sorry. Yeah. So when you talk about, I completely forgot. Yeah. So when you're talking about the industrial scenario, when you apply to different companies, every company will have its own cutoff. So I can't really give you an ideal range, but I would 100% say you should aim for at least a 80 and above ATS score. Because what happens is, if on those systems you're getting above 80, that means you have a fair chance of getting passed through the actual ATSs in the companies which are being employed, right? So I would say a decent score should be at least like a 75 to 80. Try to get that. If you get like a 90 and all, then it's perfect. Very good. Because ATS score of 90 indicates that you have almost everything in place. There's just a bit of things that you need to work on. And these platforms also let you know what you're lacking on, right? And why you're not able to meet that score. So I would say let it be between a range of 80 to 95 to be on the safe side.
Okay, ma'am. All right. So, ma'am, also during this time of pandemic, when everything is online, are video resumes the next thing that recruiters are going to look for?
Hmm.
That's the question, ma'am.
Acha, you're asking. Okay. Um, See, I'll tell you one thing that there are a lot of speculations. People say that resumes will get replaced. I myself so active on LinkedIn and I totally support LinkedIn. But when people pass statements like your resume will get replaced by your LinkedIn, I feel it's a little wrong. Even today, I'm not saying I know it because I speak to a lot of recruiters. Whenever your resume is asked for, your LinkedIn profile is checked. 100% it is checked. Okay. And I know that. But that is what I'm saying. Both are checked because both are different. Your resume is not your LinkedIn profile, and your LinkedIn profile is not your resume. They're two different things. So I don't know what would happen in the future. I'm assuming it could be that 5 or 6 years from today, we wouldn't be using conventional paper resumes. Could be. But I still feel a LinkedIn profile cannot be your resume. It can be more like a digital footprint or portfolio. And when you talk about a video resume, it can be something which just supplements your resume to stand out, right? Simple example. If there is an applicant A who is just sending his paper resume to a recruiter, there's a candidate B who is sending a paper resume and a video resume. You tell me, Anmol, Ananya, sorry, whose resume or whose mail would you be more tempted to open? You're not even a
The
recruiter, just tell
one,
me.
right. The
But
one with the
can
video as well.
I ask you why? Just want to know.
Because I think I'm going to be more curious to, see what is it that that person has sent and why is that video, something that we should actually look forward to.
Yeah. So the thing is, now we're not even recruiters, right? And we're thinking that way. Imagine an actual recruiter who gets thousands of applications for one position. The simple mindset is a paper cannot convey so much as a person physically can, right? I'm talking about myself here on the live, and let's say only my resume you would have shown to tell who Dherya Gangwani is. The disconnect is there. You build connection, you understand the person's personality, behavior, confidence level, communication skills. All of that helps the recruiter understand better if you could be a good fit culturally for the company, right? Because it's not always the technical capabilities. It's not that I want the best programmer or the best coder. I also want someone who can work with my team and produce results for my company and understands the work culture of my company. And that is understood when you see and meet the person. If not physically, at least e-meeting, right? Through the video resume. And that's why I think it's going to be the next thing for sure. And I think Naukri.com has already put in the feature to upload your video resume when you're making a profile. So we are advancing. I'm happy to see India is also adapting to it. Outside of India, it's become like a common thing. Almost in most of the foreign countries, a resume is something which has become very normal. And I'm very sure most of the platforms will very soon start adapting to it on India as well.
All
In
right,
India,
ma'am,
sorry.
we have another question. What about cover letters with resumes? Are they like important? Should they be used?
So that's a great question, Abhinav. See, every company mostly keeps this provision optional to send a cover letter. But if they say that yes, we want a cover letter, then obviously you send it across. Now, why it's kept optional is because Not everyone may have a lot of matter to talk about themselves, but essentially, two things that a cover letter serves the purpose of is number one, whatever information you haven't been able to elaborate on in your resume can be elaborated on in your cover letter. Now, some things like your hobbies, your passion, your side hustle. Let's say you have a YouTube channel, you write a blog on Medium, right? You have an Instagram page where you share knowledge, whatever it is. These things generally people can't mention in their resume. A cover letter is the right place to talk more about the sides of your personality or things that you do which you couldn't mention in your resume, which helps you stand apart from people, right? Because your resume will anyways have your skills, your projects, your work experience, etc. What more can I know about you? That is what you need to cover in a cover letter. Maybe talk about the company a bit. How does their work culture or the company's values and mission resonate with you as a person? Why did you choose this company and this role in this company? That's very important, right? Because in every industry you go today, if I want to get into the IT industry, I can go to Accenture also, I can go to Infosys also, I can go to TCS also. Why am I applying to only TCS in this role, right? Why not to it? Why am I not applying to its competitors? So there your research will come into play. How well have you researched the company and the role? And how well do you genuinely fit into that role? So those are the things that, a few things that you can talk about in your cover letter.
All
Yeah.
right, ma'am. So we have another question. How can we impress the recruiter at the first sight on resume and then eventually during the interview?
Well, I think the best way that you can actually impress the interview in the first go is not send a generic resume, which you send to every company, to every job role. Take out the time, customize your job application as well as your resume for that job role, right? I cannot send out the same resume for a marketing position when I send out an application for a business development position. Two different positions, two different companies, at least two slightly different resumes. Tweak some sections, make it customized as per the job role. Don't use generic words like hardworking. Help, help is such a, I would say, underrated word to look at in a resume. Teamwork, all of these has become common skills, and every other person says that. Okay, or I'm competitive. I've got spontaneous thinking skills. All of this is very generic. Be very specific to that role and use the actual software technologies or skills which apply to that role. Okay, more like problem solving, critical thinking, whether it is your ability to probably, now time management is not something you should be mentioning. They're looking at more of things like, you know, your emotional intelligence over your intelligence quotient. So your EQ over your IQ is what is looked at today in the interviews also. How well can you perform under pressure? How well do you work in a team under stress where people with different opinions are working with you? You may not always agree to things, but you're still able to deliver results. This is what recruiters are looking for today. Not just someone with amazing grades or from Ivy League colleges or IIMs. No, it's not the case. Skills are given priority. So I would say build up on your skills, do certifications, attend conferences, do a lot of internships, build on your profile, be active on LinkedIn as a student, because that is creating your digital footprint for life. Anybody who searches your name on Google, your digital social media platforms show up first. If you're very active on Instagram, that would show up first. If you have a good account on LinkedIn and which has got visibility, that will show up first. So try to make sure that you have a digital presence today, because if you feel people don't Google your name, it's wrong. And I would like to see something substantial when I Google your name. So I think these are a few things that you should keep in mind.
All right, ma'am. So my other question would be, what are the right ways to send your resumes across to the recruiter for whichever company you're aiming for?
Yeah. So when you're applying to companies, whether you're using portals, these job finding portals like Naukri or an imjobs.com or whatever it is, or you're applying through LinkedIn because LinkedIn has a LinkedIn Easy Apply, or let's say you apply to the company official website directly. These are one of the few ways you would be applying. Or even if you are going into an internal referral, whatever it is, I genuinely feel that today, if you can actually send across like your resume with a very good pitch in an email with a very attractive one-liner subject, right? One-liner subject line, which is very, very eye-catching and something which is not conventional, not something like in reference to job ID XYZ. Why not say something like, I think you should hire me, or here is your future, you know, employee in the marketing space, something like that, which most of the people won't think of writing because that will catch my attention or the recruiter's attention to even open that email, right? And it also portrays your confidence. Also, when you write something like this, be very confident about your skills. Because if you're making such claims, you need to be very confident about your skills and what you bring to the table. So that disclaimer I'm giving you. But provided you're at peace with the fact that your skills are on point, you've got good experience and good certifications, go out there, have a good pitch, like a small emailer pitch, small introduction, very brief introduction about yourself, one liner, two lines about why you're reaching out to them, and then a last line saying that you have your video resume, your cover letter, and resume attached for further information with respect to this particular job role towards the end. And then let the resume and the cover letter and the video resume do the talking. That's the right way to apply. You give them everything. Even if it's optional, you put the cover letter. Because if 99 people are putting only a resume and you are putting a resume and a cover letter, you are having an edge over them. 100%. Because I have another piece of paper to read about you, right? And to gauge if you could be a better fit or not. You win there. That is where you come among the top 1% of the people who don't do the things that you are doing. Right? So I think that's the right way to go about it. And be very, very specific about the kind of language you use. Keep it as professional as possible. And yeah, I think that's it.
So we have one more question, which is quite specific. So I'm going to make it a bit generic. The question is, what are the keywords to be used in marketing and HR? But let's just mold the question in a way that it's relevant for everybody. So what are the ways through which we can look at the keywords which are going to highlight our resume better? Are there any websites where we should go to, or is there any research that we should conduct ourselves?
See, Ananya, there are a lot of websites that you can always go to, but I really don't suggest that. Reason being, keywords to bahut sare. There's so many words that we use in our day-to-day lives. Irrespective, see, domain marketing hai, consulting hai, HR hai, sales hai, it's, let's say it's customer acquisition, it's operations, that doesn't matter. The part, what matters is JD. Your JD is the answer to everything. Job description is given by every company. People don't read it. That's the issue. When you read the job description, you will get all your keywords. For a data analyst, one of the most important keywords will be any one of these data visualization tools, which is Tableau or Power BI. Excel will be a keyword because you need to have Excel proficiency to become a data analyst. These become your keywords. Okay? And your keywords you will always get from your JD only. Okay? Now in marketing, I can generically, if you ask me, digital marketing, social media marketing, or marketing strategy, market research, these are a few keywords. In HR, human resources, payroll, employee engagement, then I would say recruitment, shortlisting. These are all the keywords which are relevant for human resources or for HR professionals. But these are generic. You have to always customize your resume, like I've been mentioning from the beginning of the session. So read the JD. Whenever you apply to a company, आप JD तो पढ़ोगे. Read the JD, make a list of the keywords, and then put it on your resume. That's the only way. It's no website, nothing. It's the JD.